Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm Marty Carpenter. He's Dave Studdard. He's a founding partner at LVT. And coming up on today's show, Dave, we're going to talk to Monty Moore. He's the Director of Criminal Investigations for the Georgia Attorney General's Prosecution Division. But before we get to that, I want you to take a look at this video from 11 Alive out of Atlanta, where they reported on this brazen Bass Pro Shops theft last summer, where suspects just kind of shoved a store manager out of the way. You can't see him yet. They're coming up behind this gentleman who's actually going to pay for his merchandise, and then they're going to walk right past the cashier. Here comes the manager. He's circling up to the front door. He's going to take the guy on and confront him, and looks like there's almost an altercation, enough for him to back off, and then the accomplice, I guess you would call him, doesn't seem to do much, just kind of walks out. I know we talk about this a lot where, hey, you shouldn't step in and try to stop. But I look at that and say, I couldn't blame the store owner or manager, this guy, from trying to stop it from happening. I'm surprised he didn't sort of grab the merchandise instead of trying to take on the guy.
You know, these are hard situations. It's more of a question of life safety, right? You never know when one of these criminals is going to have a gun or a knife, and heaven forbid something bad happened to one of your employees. So the whole stand down scenario, which you're kind of watching here, you know, there's reason behind it. You just don't know how brazen these criminals will be. As evidenced by this video, they're walking out. Regardless of what you're going to do to stand in their way, they're not going to stop.
Yeah. We've seen others like this where there are dozens of people who run in, and it seems like it's more orchestrated. This looks like two guys who just go in. I look at that and say, if this owner had a taser, he drops that guy right there. But that's not the situation. I don't even know necessarily what the legalities are in Georgia.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, right? Whatever you're going to put up against some of these criminals, they're going to match it. So you don't know if they're carrying a weapon of any sort. A lot of times, is it worth $2,600 in merchandise? I don't think life is worth that, and I think a lot of the retailers would agree. But it is a challenge. How do you begin? These guys, they obviously know the rules. They walk in there as if they own the place. They walk out as if they own the place. And it's just, what do you do?
Yeah, I guess the point I would make here is, at the very least, yes, he gets away with the merchandise. We're looking at his face, right? Yeah. There's no way that the law enforcement's not going to be able to get an identification off him.
Absolutely.
He just walks in. So cameras are your friend in this case, the surveillance, the orchestrated security. Just because they get away with it in the moment doesn't mean they actually get away with it.
100%, right? How do you take that forensic data, be it camera, be it any of the point of sale information, the parking lot information, and then begin to track those individuals and leave it up to law enforcement to do the heavy lift?
All right, unlike those guys, now is the wrong time for you just to walk out on this podcast. Stick around. We got more coming up right after this. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. State Attorneys General collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Monty, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Tell me first about the general state of organized retail crime in Georgia. How big is the problem, and just how are things generally going with ORC?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. There's a study that was done in 2021 that identifies Georgia as having a $3 billion impact directly from ORC. And that impact is partially from retail losses, direct retailer losses, but it's also from lost jobs that, you know, we no longer have there. And a big, a big problem is for us as government is loss in taxes. We no longer have those revenues coming in from those retail sales. So ORC is definitely on our radar as a problem in Georgia.
When you talk to retailers in the state, maybe tell me a little bit about their level of growing frustration with it. I mean, $3 billion is a large amount of economic impact on a state. Are the retailers in your state fairly in touch with your office as you guys try to address this? Has it been a situation where you've had to try to build relationships between your office and retailers to let them know that you're there to help?
Well, we're constantly trying to build relationships with everyone within our constituency across the state of Georgia. We've worked with retail partners for a number of years now, but we're trying to reach out and to a greater extent now with our retailers. As far as the ORC front goes, we've good contacts. AG Car has set up a number of meetings now to go out and hear from retailers what they're experiencing, what are the problems, how can we help, how can we address this. So it's an evolving, continuous process. We've had good contacts in the past, and we hope to have better contacts in the future.
Yeah. When you see the videos of organized retail crime, you can see that it's growing in its brazenness, and oftentimes it's growing more and more violent. What are the characteristics you see that make these ORC groups particularly dangerous, and why is that challenging for law enforcement?
Well, violence, obviously, there are no crime types that operate within a vacuum. ORC is no different. And, those people who might commit these crimes, it's usually not their first rodeo. They're going to come in here from some other situation. They may have been involved in a different type of crime typology in the past, such as robberies or burglaries or drug use or drug sales. You just never know what you're going to run across. And yes, we've seen where some jurisdictions have reduced their desire to prosecute what they would consider simple shoplifting with a lack of understanding of what ORC is. And because of that, people have started to really enhance what they're doing when they go into these stores, to the point that some stores are not even trying to interdict or stop people when they see things going on. And with that, now some of these perpetrators have gotten out there and they've decided that, if they flash a weapon or they exhibit as if they're going to cause some force, no store employee is going to want to confront that. They're going to walk. And so it's becoming more and more common.
Yeah. As these groups get more brazen, they go into a store and they don't care what city that store's in necessarily or what county that store's in. I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about how the AG's office, AG Car's office, has to play an important role in Georgia in particular, where these crimes are committed by maybe the same group across different jurisdictions, and why that's an important reason for the AG's office to be involved.
Well, first off, they may care what city they go into, and they may not. But if there's a reputation in a particular city that this is an easy city to go do this, and there's not going to be an arrest, there's not going to be an incarceration, we can likely get away with it. It's more likely that it's going to occur there. That's my estimation. The harder you make something for a criminal to do, the less likely it is that criminals are going to do that. In Georgia, where we've seen travelers coming up the interstates, where we've seen problems in large retail areas with law enforcement agencies that are already overtaxed, we think we can make a big difference because we can cross jurisdictional lines. We're not limited by those city or county boundaries. And in fact, if we target these groups, these bad actors, with some of the laws that we have and tools that we have available to us, like RICO, racketeering charges, we potentially can bring in some of the transactional information even from state line people who've crossed state lines.
Yeah, so there's sort of these boundary lines between jurisdictions, but they're also, I guess, I would think of it as like being siloed a little bit. People can think of it as organized retail crime. But it's retail crime that really funds other parts of a larger criminal operation in many cases, right? So it's organized retail crime to steal items that then are sold to fund drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapon trafficking. How important is it for the AG's office in Georgia in particular to help the public understand that we're not just talking about these videos you see where people come in and steal stuff and run out, and the implication might be, well, it hurts the big box retailer, but no one in the store got hurt, when really it's funding crimes that nobody would be able to sort of shrug their shoulders at.
Right. Well, like I mentioned a minute ago, there's no one type of crime that operates solely within a vacuum. It usually crosses a lot of different crime typologies. And so with the types of incidents that are happening in ORC, some people look at those things as simply as shoplifting without a lack of understanding the broader implications of it. The broader implications are that it's feeding and funneling other types of operations. It could be seed money for drug trafficking. With some of the types of crimes we've seen in retailers that I consider ORC, it might be refund fraud. And the refund fraud, they're using counterfeit identities to commit those things. And it might be counterfeit identities in a real person's name. When the gangs operate, sometimes they might push in women that they're trafficking to go act as boosters to come in and do the stealing for them. So again, when we see a crime, it's not in a vacuum. There's usually multiple crimes that are being committed. ORC is just one of those.
Yeah. Georgia prosecutes ORC without a minimum threshold. Can you tell me how that's important, or why that approach?
We don't have a cutoff. We don't have a minimum threshold. We're looking at the greatest impact that we can have. Do we have a community that's having a problem because no one is enforcing the law in that particular community? Well, I already know my boss, AG Carr, we're interested in the rule of law. We're going to enforce the law. And we have a philosophy that that's likely going to help everybody in that particular community. It's going to keep those businesses from fleeing that community. The threshold idea before you start prosecution is not one that I look at as a dollar loss. It's more what type of impact can we have in that area. If we can shut down a group, if we can disrupt a group, hopefully disable that group permanently, but if we can at least disrupt that group, we've done our job.
I'm wondering how technology has made this, has aided your efforts to fight against organized retail crime. I'm just thinking, like, if someone went into a store, I don't know, 50 years ago, there's not cameras in there where you could kind of track their behavior, their movements. There's not a system of cameras outside of stores where you could follow them. Police forces now have better technology. How has technology made this at least something where you say, boy, we have some real reason for optimism as we battle against this?
Technology is a big driver. Innovation in that sector has really played a fantastic role in combating ORC and even any kind of theft. It started off where grocery stores just put a turnstile in to control traffic flow, right? And I hesitate to even talk about some of the technology because this is
don't give away any secrets.
This is kind of like a forum out here, and who's going to be watching this, right? But whether it's tracking devices or whether we're tracking or able to track individuals based on the phones that they're carrying, or whether it's camera setups in store parking lots or license plate readers. A lot of this is technology that's already in the news media now that law enforcement has access to. Facial recognition. There are a lot of tools out there. There are more tools on the horizon. It's really a game changer for us in how we prosecute our cases.
Yeah. The general public is often just sort of a bystander in this. They're in stores. Someone can run in and commit crimes related to organized retail crime. What do you want the public to do, not do, and what do you want them just to know about organized retail crime?
I'd like the public to understand that organized retail crime isn't shoplifting. Shoplifting or stealing funnels into a larger organization. It feeds other crime types. It may be feeding a lifestyle. It may be harming people in another way. Maybe it's drugs. Maybe it's something else. The general public right now, and frankly, a lot of local law enforcement agencies, particularly at the lower, uniform level, don't understand what ORC truly is and the impact that it can have. As far as the public goes, I would suggest just be aware of it, understand what it is. Don't try to get involved in it. Make yourself a good witness. It'd be a good idea, but don't get involved in it.
No one has a silver bullet, otherwise we wouldn't be here talking about ORC. But I wonder if you just could sum up for us and say, in Georgia, in the AG's office, this is what we are doing right, and this is the best reason for us to think we're making real progress against this type of crime.
In our Attorney General's office in Georgia, we have really gone after the problem areas. We want Georgia to maintain its status as the best place to do business in the country. That's the way we feel about it. That's what we want to do. And the way we're going to help out with this issue is we're going to focus on the enforcement of the laws that we already have on the books, frankly. We're going to make a dent in it. We're going to stop it. We're going to do what we can to make all of our communities safer.
All right, Dave, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsors, LVT and the Attorney General Alliance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and follow button so you can watch each new episode. We drop one about every 2 weeks. I know you've subscribed. You're a loyal listener because you're on the show, so you might as well watch. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes below. Thanks for being with us, everyone. And as always, keep up the good fight.